Thank you. Okay, good work. I'm sorry we started a little late here. Last year ran a little long. I apologize. Okay, so we continue tonight with Hilchos Refua. Again, we're learning Lulu Nishmas, Yehuda Shimon Zechar L'Bracha ben Yeshua Yosef Moshe, and Aryalev Zechar L'Bracha ben Yeshua Adam Zalman. Okay. Again, anybody has questions, post them, please, as we go through. Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with. Again, sometimes I may forget what we discussed, what we didn't discuss from previous weeks. So if somebody can just post. Somebody's posting, you have a question. Is a question having to do with Refua? You're welcome to text it now. If I repeat something, then from other weeks, then just tell me, and I will. I'll just jump to the next subject. But anyways, again, just understanding the basic rule. Okay, so we'll get to your question in a minute. Okay, it's a very common question. Actually was going to discuss part of it tonight. That was a plan. So anyway, so getting back to just to chazer quickly of what Hilchos Refua is. If somebody is a chayla sheyesh by sakana, you do whatever you need to do to heal that person. If the person is a regular chayla, ain by sakana, but legitimately considered a chayla, then you can't do malacha for them. You may be able to do a malacha with them with a shinoi. Certainly the rabbanon with a shinoi can be done for them, but you can't do malacha with them. But there is no isser of refuah. That's the main point. If somebody is legitimately sick, strep throat, a bad cold, things like that. But a bad cold meaning, basically, we had two definitions for it. We had either you're sick enough that it's bothering your entire body, which basically means you can't stop thinking about it, or it's if you feel that the pain is enough that you need to lay down. So with any one of those, then there is no Issa Refua, and you're allowed to do whatever Refuas you need to do, again, assuming that there's no Malacha being done. The whole Gezerah of Refua and Shabbos is for somebody who's not feeling great, but not sick enough to fall into those two previous categories. Meaning you're not, I guess it would be defined as not feeling well. You're not feeling well, but you're fully functioning. There, the Chachamim made a Gezerah that they were afraid that if you're going to allow the person to be healed, then we're afraid that they're going to grind medication, and grinding medication entails an issa daraisa of grinding, and therefore you would not be allowed to do refuah. But again, it's only for somebody who is in no man's land, meaning they're not feeling well, but they're not considered sick. Once you're considered sick, the Gezerah the Rabbanan goes off, and you're allowed to do refuahs. Again, no malachas, but refuahs. Okay. So we discussed last week that we discussed putting on creams, etc., since that has to do with the question that was posted. So we'll start with that. So we discussed putting on creams, that the best way to put on a cream is, so one more step before that is that children up to the age of 8 or 9 years old are considered some 7, 8, depending on their maturity, depending how well they deal with pain. But it's safe to say 7 to 9. For sure, less than 7 is no problem, 7 and under. And many children up to 9, sometimes even more than that. One has to know the child that's being dealt with. But that's considered a chayla, even if they just don't feel well. So a baby rash or any sort of rash like that, so we're going to say that there's no isser of refuah. You could put it on, and the way you put on the cream is you dab it on, right? You dab it on, preferably with a shinoi, meaning the easiest way to dab on the cream is to dab it on with the back of a spoon, like this. There's less of a concern of smearing it, or you could put it onto a diaper or to a Band-Aid, and then put the Band-Aid on, and the smearing will happen by itself. We did say with chapped lips. So chapped lips is a very good example of chapped lips. Chapped hands is a very good example of somebody who's not feeling well but not sick enough, right? So that example will be where you cannot do any sort of refuah unless you're really in enough pain that you're going to want to lay down, or it's really, really bothering you, in which case you could do it. But you can't, again, you'd have the smearing issue, so then you could take oil, baby oil. I don't know if you put that on your lips, or any type of oil that's porous. There's no isser. That was another thing we mentioned last week, which many, many people are not aware of, is that you're allowed to take something that pours easily. There's no smearing issue. So if, let's say, somebody decided they want a massage on Shabbos, not because they don't feel well, then that, because that would be a problem. They just want a massage because they like to do a massage. That would be allowed with oil on Shabbos. It can't be like a heavy massage, because then that's a weekday activity, but a small massage using oil, no problem on Shabbos, right? Using anything thick that doesn't pour, then you can't. Yeah, so now, right, so sticking your finger into a tub of Vaseline, even with a shinoi, it's not smearing, and even if it would smear, that's not a smearing that you want. So we would not be concerned with that, right? It's not something that you're looking to do. When you're putting it onto the cut, or wherever the irritated area, there you would be happy if it got smeared. On the finger, the opposite. The less of your finger that has the Vaseline on it, the easier it is to wash off. So you'd be very unhappy if it got a smear. Okay, so now the shaila being presented here is that the 5-year-old got a cut on Shabbos, right? Can you put the Neosporin on the cut, or better on the Band-Aid, or not at all? So yes, you can put the Neosporin onto the Band-Aid and then put the Band-Aid on. That would be okay. I would say it really depends on if there's a real risk of infection, then you could even put it onto the cut. Most of the time, you can just cover the cut till after Shabbos, and then put the Neosporin on later if you can. But yes, theoretically, the best way to do it would be put it onto the Band-Aid and then put the Band-Aid on. Once we're on the subject of Band-Aids, I think, okay, we'll get to it. We'll get back to Band-Aids soon. There's important halachas to be known about Band-Aids. Okay, but here, so now again, if it's only bothering you a little bit, then there is a isser of Refua. So, but there's a very interesting situation which many are not aware of, where even if it seems to be a healing, but if the healing can't be done with medication, and it can only be done some other way other than medication, then there is no gezerah. Again, the Chachamim's gezerah was because if you're going to do healing, you might come to grind medication, right? But if there's no way to do the healing with any sort of medication that could possibly lead you to grinding, then there's no problem. For example, let's try and just bring an example. If a kid falls and gets a bump, right? There's no medication, as far as I know, that you can take to reduce swelling, right? If there is if I'm wrong on that, please. I'm not saying anything on my own. Anyways, I'm saying what the post can say. Then please let me know, right? Yes, I understand that there's things that can, Advil can maybe reduce pain, etc. But from what I understand, the way to reduce swelling is some put ice on it, some will take a spoon or a knife and push down on the swelling. I don't know if they do that anymore. They certainly used to do that. Either way, there's no way to do it with medication. So therefore, there is no gezerah. As it is, we said with kids, there's no problem with refuah. But let's say it's a 12-year-old. Let's say it's a 15-year-old. Let's say it's an adult. Chas v'shalom falls, and they're swelling. So they want to push down the swelling. Since there is no way to do it with any sort of medication that could possibly be ground, therefore the Chachamim said there's no problem. So therefore, pushing down on a swelling would be allowed lichatchila on Shabbos, even though it's healing, if you call that healing. But since there's no way to do it with medication, there's no concern that we're going to say, oh, if we let them push down the the swelling, then they may go take some herbs and grind them up and put it down on top of the swelling. They're never going to do that because that's not going to get the swelling down anyways. All right. So therefore, if somebody has a bruise or somebody recovering from surgery, et cetera, somebody recovering from surgery is probably anyways considered a real chayla. But let's say they weren't, it was a minor surgery. So yes, you could put ice. Ice would be okay. Putting pressure on it, etc., is allowed. Now, opening ice packs on Shabbos, right, is not so simple. But making a chemical reaction, it could be a shaila of baina. Some places can allow it. I personally think that they should be open before Shabbos and leave them in the freezer if possible. But again, if necessary, then you can even you can take those ice packs and pop them, and preferably do it with a sheena just to be safe. But again, so ice on a swelling or anything like that is allowed, right? Another common question is a dental retainer, right? So somebody who has braces or had braces, or somebody who grinds their teeth, or any type of thing like that. So that's also healing. You're healing the teeth. Whether that's considered a real healing or not would probably depend on why they needed the braces. Most of the time it's cosmetic. So whether something cosmetic is considered healing is a different story. We'll get into that when we discuss pimples. Like somebody gets a pimple, they want to put a cream on that, or do the special wipes to clean it so they don't get pimples. Is that really refua? Is that healing? It may not be healing because it's just a cosmetic thing. Cosmetics is not healing. Okay, that's a different subject. I don't know if we'll get to that tonight. But using a dental retainer is a problem because it's not a problem. Sorry, it's not a problem because there's no way to fix the teeth without with medication. There's no way to fix the teeth with medication. So therefore, since there's no way to fix it with medication, therefore you would be allowed to use the dental retainer, right? And putting on an ace bandage, I should have said this one before, putting on an ace bandage or a brace for the foot or anything like that is also not a problem because an ace bandage can help heal or make things feel better. That's not something that can be done with a medication. So since it can't be done with a medication, there's no chashash of grinding any sort of medication. And also orthotics in the shoes. Many people wear orthotics in the shoes. That again, that's something that cannot be healed with medication. There's something, a disformity with the bones, etc., whatever it is, that's something that using an orthotic piece will maybe heal it or help it, but that's not something that could be done with medication. So therefore, that's okay. Yes, can you refreeze the ice pack on Shabbos? That's a disagreement, like everything else is a disagreement, but whether you're allowed to make ice on Shabbos, but certainly for a chayla, you'd be able to refreeze the ice pack. Okay, so I hope I'm being clear with that. So I can't think of any other examples. If anybody can think of any other examples where there's a refua and it doesn't have to do with medications, you can feel free to post it. But those are the basic ones that I could come up with that are allowed to be done on Shabbos because there's no way that they could be done with medications. Okay, so now once we're on to that, then there's another very common question. Moving on to a different subject is, let's say somebody's on a regimen for antibiotics, whatever, 7 days, 10 days, 3 days, 5 days, and you have to take the medication over Shabbos. So now, if the person is sick anyways on Shabbos and really sick, let's say strep throat, let's say they were diagnosed with strep throat on a Friday, and they're still in a lot of pain, or anything like that, and they're still pain on Shabbos, so then they're considered a legitimate chayla, therefore they take the medication anyways. The thing is, let's say they were diagnosed with strep throat on a Monday, Tuesday, and they want you to take the medications for 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is, right? So there, you're not a chayla anymore on Shabbos. You're just taking it to make sure that it doesn't come back, or to eradicate it, whatever it is. So can you take that on Shabbos? So many people just say, yeah, of course you could take it on Shabbos. It's really not simple. And many poskim can say that you should not take it on Shabbos because it's not necessary on Shabbos, right? The bottom line is the minig ha'olam based on the makilim is to take the medication through Shabbos because the doctors say that it's not gonna, the antibiotics will not be effective, etc. So this seems to be the minig, but bottom line is if you can avoid it, then it would definitely be better to avoid on Shabbos. So for example, if you have to take the medication once a day, then certainly there's no reason to take it on Shabbos. Take it one on Friday and take one on Motzei Shabbos, right? Now, if it has to be something that has to be taken at the same time every day, then you have more of a reason. You'd have more of a reason to take it at that particular time. Also, if you have to start a regimen of medication and you get the prescription on a Friday and it's not something that needs to be taken right away, so then maybe we better to wait till Motzei Shabbos to take it. It'd be better to wait till Motzei Shabbos. Again, ask your doctor, depending on what the scenario is. Again, with giving a shir on Hilchos Refua, you always have to be careful because sometimes you say, okay, better to wait till Motzei Shabbos. If not better to wait till Motzei Shabbos, if medically it could negatively affect you, then of course don't wait till Motzei Shabbos. But all things being equal, depending on what it's for, right? Like Accutane. So somebody just posted, what about by taking Accutane? Accutane is a medication for acne. Can it be taken on Shabbos? So it really depends what type of regimen you're on, how bad the acne is, and what would happen if you don't take it. I know some, they say that if you stop taking it even for one day, then it's going to be a problem. So then don't do it. Question is Accutane, like we said, is acne even considered Refua? Maybe it's just for cosmetics, but okay, that would depend on also how bad it is. For some people, social anxiety because of physical things can cause illness. Understandably so. So it's you have to know each scenario. Most of the time, we're going to say that if it's a regular standard regimen, then it's going to be allowed. You really want to be from, then you can go put it into something before Shabbos, like we said last week. You can put it into a food, dissolve it in a drink before Shabbos, because not all places can even allow it, even when you do it before Shabbos. Certainly, it should be done before Shabbos, and then you just bite into it, and then that would be more lenient. But again, don't do that unless you know for sure you'll be able to take the medication properly. Yeah. So yeah. Now so that's that. So again, it's a big machlokes whether a 10-day, 7-day regimen can be taken on Shabbos. So if you know that it's not something that is so important to start, then preferable to wait till after Shabbos if you can. If not, we do allow you to take the medication through Shabbos. And by the way, this is a question that was asked a couple of times. We said, well, what's the concern? Nobody is grinding medications nowadays. Nobody is grinding medications. So why we still keeping this gezerah? So the answer is because once Chachamim make a gezerah, then we stick with the gezerah for forever. We can't change the gezerah unless we have a bezdin that's bigger than the bezdin that initiated the gezerah thousands of years ago, which obviously we don't have. And if you do hear of a bezdin that says that they're bigger than the bezdin from 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, then run the other way, right? But the bottom line is we're I don't want to say we're stuck with it because the Chachamim with their wisdom made Shabbos look proper the way it is. Again, we have to understand without the Rabbanim's wisdom, Shabbos would not look anything like it's supposed to. Let's just I'm sorry for digressing here a little bit, but it's an important point where when electricity came out, there was really it was a big debate whether how are we going to make electricity also on Shabbos. There were opinions that said electricity is not also on Shabbos. Under what of the 39 malachos is electricity also? There were opinions that said it's mutter. Other opinions said it's the Rabbanon. There's one opinion that says it's deraisa, but for the most part, all the rabbis were in agreement. All the rabbis were in agreement that we need to say electricity is usr. Because if we don't make electricity usr, then Shabbos is not going to look like Shabbos, which I think we all clearly understand that if we allowed electricity, then a Shabbos would be totally different nowadays, right? So the Chachamim with their wisdom saw that, saying in muksa. Muksas like we discussed. Muksa is the Rabbana, right? Imagine what Shabbos would be like if we didn't have the Isra of muksa. Okay, so some things like grinding medication doesn't seem nowadays to make Shabbos any different. Like if I'm going to pop a pill on Shabbos, it's not going to make Shabbos look any different than what it would look like 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. But again, we can't just start picking and choosing which gezeras we're going to change and which we're not going to change. So therefore, we keep all the gezeras. But there is an opinion that does say, and it's too complicated now would take way too much time to fully explain this. First, it would take too much time for me to fully understand it in order to be able to explain it, right? But it depends how the gezerah was instituted when it was initially instituted. There's different ways that they instituted where some gezerahs do leave some freedom for to be makel, and some gezerahs not. So there is an opinion that says that the way the gezerah of medication was instituted, that since if it ever comes to a situation where it's not going to be pertinent, which is nowadays, then you could be more lenient. We don't paskin like this opinion, but we do use it as a combination in certain situations, meaning we have a machlokes anyways, whether there's even a problem with taking medication. And we have a machlokes whether you're allowed to take a 10-day regimen. And then we have a machlokes whether this is even a isser of Refua. So we're going to use all these combinations to be more makel, right? So again, nowadays, based on all the above, if somebody needs to take a regimen of medication for more than 7 days, then we do allow it. Okay. So next on that same subject. So what's with vitamins, right? Can we take vitamins on Shabbos? Also a very big machlokes over exactly how we look at vitamins. Excuse me. So some look at vitamins like it's medication. If you go with those opinions, then you're not allowed to take vitamins at Shabbos. If others look at vitamins like it's food, if you go with those opinions, then food is allowed to be taken on Shabbos, and therefore it would be allowed. And then some say that if you take vitamins every day, then and healthy people take these vitamins, then that's called what we said, I think either last week or the week before, that's called Michael Brian, right? So that's food that normal healthy people drink, which we said that would be allowed. Meaning if somebody has a tea because they have a sore throat, that's mutter on Shabbos, because nobody's going to think that they're doing it for Refua. They think that they're doing it to have a tea. If somebody drinks vodka or any sort of alcohol because they have a toothache, so nobody's going to think that they're doing it for a toothache, even though that's exactly why you're doing it, because that looks like something that normal healthy people take. So if you take multivitamins, vitamin C's, whatever, all these type of things, if enough people take them every day, then some say that's looked at like a regular Michael Brian, but it's not so simple because many people don't take vitamins. So that opinion is not so simple. But either way, there is a machlokes about taking vitamins or not. Now, what gets very interesting is, again, if you say vitamins is medicine, then it's not allowed to be taken. If you say that it's food, then it is allowed to be taken. Now, this, obviously, the one that says that it's considered food is the lenient opinion. And the one that says that it's medicine is the more strict opinion. These opinions will go to the opposite extreme when we have to decide whether there's trace ingredients in the medication. This has nothing to do with Hilchos Shabbos, but it's important to point out because a lot of people ask and they're not sure what's going on. Let's say you have a medication in pill form that has trace in it, which many do. Gel caps, almost all gel caps are trace. Whether the old penicillin, antibiotics, what they look like plastic, is gelatin or glycerin. And certainly the medications that come in they have cold medicines and cough medicines, and even Advil, Tylenol, they all come in these gel things. Those gels are trafe, and they're there to make the medicine go down easier. So they're not so simple to take. Push comes to shove, according to halacha, since you don't chew it and you just swallow it, then according to the ikar halacha, it's mutter. But there are many opinions that say it's usr. So since there's alternatives out there, then we certainly say take the alternative, which, regular pills that don't have this gel, so then it's fine. Now, the reason why it would be matter is because we say it's medication, and medication is only being swallowed. It's not derech achila, it's not called eating. Fine. But what about vitamins? Many vitamins now, especially the cheap ones in Costco that everybody wants to buy because they're cheap. What do you call fish oil, and all these type of things, a lot of them come in these gel cap form. So if you say it's medication, so you have the same leniency. But if you say that it's food, which would make it lenient on Shabbos, if it's food, then you have no heter to take the vitamins, because that's like having tray for food. It's like saying, I'll take a tray for hamburger as long as I swallow it without chewing it, then I'm allowed to eat that food because it's healthy for me. Right? Nobody's going to do that. I'm not saying I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's clearly, taking a gel cap is not the same as taking a tray for hamburger, but it's again. But when there's alternatives, why put yourself into a shaila of whether you're allowed to do it? So again, if you look at vitamins like it's food, then it'd be mutter to take on Shabbos, but you'd have a problem hechsher-wise. If you look at it like it's medicine, then you can't take it on Shabbos, but you'd have an easier time hechsher-wise. So you have to know which way you're going on this, right? So that's basically with vitamins. So therefore, since there are opinions that say that vitamins should not be taken on Shabbos, it's better not to take them on Shabbos. If they can, again, it depends why. If it's something that's very necessary, then you take it. You go with the lenient opinions. If not, from what I understand, most vitamins are once a day type thing. So I don't see any reason why you can't take the vitamin before Shabbos, and then the vitamin after Shabbos, and then that's fine. It doesn't have to be going into the body every 24 hours or whatever. It can't have more than a 24-hour lapse, as far as I know. Obviously, if you do need it, then it's fine. Okay, so that again, vitamins, if you can avoid taking them on Shabbos, it's better to avoid taking them on Shabbos. So when let's say somebody feels like on Shabbos they're starting to come down with a cold. So some people think that if they overdose on vitamin C and multivitamins, then that will knock out the cold. That for sure would be a problem, because then you're doing it for healing, right? Preventative maybe is a little bit more, there's a little bit more makel, right? But we'll get to preventative in a minute. Okay, so let's see some questions here. So what about allergy medication? So again, allergy medication, it would depend. When are you taking it? Are you taking it once you don't feel well? Then it would depend how strongly you don't feel well. If it's just because it's stop sneezing or whatever, then it could be allergy medications could be a problem, unless it's a steady regimen which you have to take every day. And if you don't take it, it's going to ruin things. Then you have the lenient opinions. Is there any prescribed medication that'd be a problem with Shabbos? Sure. If you have prescribed medication, you're not outwardly sick enough to need that medication, then that medication could be a problem. On Shabbos. Most of the time, the reason why we're going to allow prescribed medication is because you have to take a regimen of 10 days or whatever amount of days. So therefore, you need to take it. But if theoretically it was a prescribed medication that you only take when you have symptoms, then those symptoms have to be strong enough that you want to lay down. You have to meet the requirements of Refua. Okay, so now the next subject, which is also very important, is taking medication prevented it. Can you take medication before the onset of any sort of symptoms? It's very common on Yom Kippur, right? People know that they're going to get a headache Yom Kippur afternoon. So what they want to do is they want to take medication. Now, again, like we just discussed with the kashrus, swallowing a pill is not considered eating according to most places. Or some take it as some that don't want to get into that machlokes will take a suppository of they'll take a caffeine suppository, or they'll take caffeine medications, etc., etc. If you're already not feeling well, but the not feeling well is not strong enough to lay down, then that's usher to take it on Yom Kippur, having nothing to do with Yom Kippur. It has to do with, because Yom Kippur is also Shabbos, right? It has the same halacha as a Shabbos. Therefore, you would not be allowed to take it because it's an issur refua. If the person already is so sick that they want to lay down, then that would be allowed, right? It's again, the middle person has the issue. But let's say, can you take it before you feel any symptoms coming on as preventative? Meaning you can't call that healing. Well, some persons do call it healing, but most, I don't know most, but the way we usually go with is that if it's taken when you feel absolutely no symptoms, then that would be mutter as a preventative measure, because you're not doing refua there. You're just preventing something from coming on. Okay, so for on Yom Kippur, we would allow it if that's certainly we're going to allow it if it's going to enable you to be able to daven better, because that's a sort of a tzarech. If you know you're going to be going to a loud place or taking a long walk and you might end up sneezing, you might have allergies, so then take the medication before the allergies kick in which case you're just doing something preventative. Again, it's not everybody is allowing this, so it should only be taken when it's necessary. But that would be the best way to do it, is take it before you feel any sort of symptoms. So going along those lines, right? Stopping pain is allowed, right? Healing is a problem, but to stop pain is not a problem. For example, let's say somebody has a pimple, and the pimple, you're not sick. It's just, it's annoying, right? So what you're doing by popping the pimple that's not healing. You're just relieving pressure, I guess. That would be the way to say it. So if you're relieving pressure, that's okay. Same thing with somebody's bleeding, right? Is there somebody, like the shiloh that was posted before? A kid gets a cut. So there's nothing dangerous, again, on a minor cut. There's nothing dangerous. The person's not even, they're feeling a little bit of pain, but that's it. So we say, oh, you're not allowed to take care of the cut because that's healing on Shabbos? No, because that's not healing. All you're doing is wiping up the cut and putting on a bandage so it stops bleeding. So that's not healing. Same with taking out a splinter, right? If somebody gets a splinter on Shabbos, are you allowed to take out the splinter? Maybe it's considered healing. So we have two reasons why that's not healing. One, it's not healing and you're just taking out the splinter to take away the pain of the splinter. And the other one is that you can't take out a splinter with medication, like we learned before. Only isurim that you could potentially heal with medication are usur. So taking out a splinter, you can't potentially heal with medication. So therefore, that would be allowed, right? Same thing with, let's say you want to eat a raw egg, swallow a raw egg in order to have soothing the throat. Again, that's not healing. It's not going to heal anything, I think. If a doctor says it will actually heal the throat, then you have a problem. See, the tea, drinking a hot tea or drinking chicken soup, that could be heals. I don't know how, I don't know what. I think I saw a report this week that said that chicken soup, they did studies, and that chicken soup actually helps heal. I have no idea how, I don't know what, but if that's the case, then that would theoretically be a problem with healing on Shabbos, but it's not a problem because, like we said, anything that normal people would drink on a steady basis, which chicken soup tea is, then there's no issur refua. Again, like every other halacha, you have to just try and plug in all the different variables to see why something would be mutter, something would be also. Like, so taking a raw egg just to soothe the throat would be okay, as long as it doesn't heal, right? Suntan lotion, a common question, not in the winter, but can you put on suntan lotion? So yes, you can, because it's not there. You're not healing anything. What you're doing is you're just preventing the sun from affecting the skin. Again, it has to be suntan lotion that's thin enough that it pours. It has to be a very thin suntan lotion or the spray, and then you could spray that on, and then you can smear it as long as it's very liquidy. But it's not Refua. Now, putting on aloe, or I don't know what else they put on for sunburn medication, that's a problem, because then that's healing. Right. So again, if you ask a shaila to a Rav and you say, okay, can I put on sunburn lotion? He'll probably say no. Can I put on suntan lotion? The answer would be yes. Right? Because one is just to make sure that nothing bad happens. It's not refuah. Sleeping pills. Okay, sleeping pills is a common question. Can somebody take sleeping pills on Friday night in order to sleep? So it would depend. If you take it because you don't feel well, then it's a problem, because you have to actually really not feel well in order to be able to take it. But some say is that that's not refuah. Sleeping pills is not refuah. You're just taking it in order to sleep, right? Meaning somebody feels perfectly fine, but they think they're not going to sleep. They have nerves or whatever it is. So then they can't. The problem is some say nerves is considered some sort of sickness. So okay, that's a different subject for a different time. But the makilim say that's taking a sleeping pill or melatonin, right, is fine, because that's not really healing anything. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to heal in a person. I mean, obviously, sleeping does heal, but that's the sleeping that heals. This is just to get you to go to sleep. That's not necessarily healing. So bottom line is again, a lot of these things are disagreements, but this is the psak that I personally go with, that sleeping pills would be okay. And a lot of times sleeping pills are okay because the person, if they're not going to sleep, then they will become a chayil. They won't be able to function. In which case we said also last week or 2 weeks ago that somebody's allowed to take medication if they think that, let's say, a headache is going to turn into a migraine. And we said you're allowed to, and that's allowed. Now, so you're going to say, okay, so if somebody has a headache, that's pain. And by taking Advil or Tylenol, you're removing the pain. But that's not the place we say that's not the way that works. It's not just removing pain. That's actually changing something in the body that's healing it, and therefore you no longer have the headache. So therefore it's a problem. Okay, so the question that's posted here: if somebody feels a sinus infection, right? So I think we just answered that question. Yes, then you would be able to, if you feel it coming on, and you're afraid it's going to make you sick enough that you're going to have to lay down, then you are allowed to do it. Okay, so if anybody has any questions posted now, I'll just review what we discussed tonight. So again, we said with creams to put it on, dab it on with a shinoi if necessary. If it's very thin lotion, then you're allowed to put it on. And then we said that only Refua that could potentially heal with medication is asa. So something that cannot be healed with medication can be done. So we said using an ace bandage is okay, or pushing down a bruise or a what do you call it, an inflammation, anything like that. Pushing it down would be okay. Putting ice on it would be okay. Retainers, dental retainers is okay. It's all for the same reason, which is those things cannot be healed with medication, so you're allowed to do that. Daily medication, it's a regimen that needs to be taken, so we said it's okay, although not so simple. So if it's once a day, try and take it before Shabbos and after Shabbos. If it has to be taken multiple times in a day, so if necessary, then yes. Again, if you're starting it from the scratch, then if you ask your doctor if you can, then wait till after Shabbos. Vitamins, we said, is totally in a machloikis, so better to take the vitamins either before Shabbos or after Shabbos. I didn't discuss this before, but I just reminded myself, let's say the gummy medications, kosher ones, all the gummy vitamins or even medications, they're all treif unless they have a hechsher for it, as far as I know. So, the kosher ones that people take as a daily thing that looks like a candy, I would say that that's certainly okay because it looks like you're taking candy on Shabbos. And then we said that healing is not allowed, but stopping pain is allowed. So taking care of a cut, putting on a Band-Aid, taking out a splinter, drinking a raw egg, and sleeping pills and these type of things are just to remove pain. So those are not a problem on Shabbos. So are there any other examples of relieving pressure that's allowed? Yeah, basically anything to relieve pressure is allowed, because as long as it can't be taken away with medication. Yeah. So anything basically. I don't know what else there would be out there, but as long as I don't think relieving pressure can be taken care of with medication. I guess there's a diuretic. I don't know if somebody's bloated, you take diuretics, so that maybe wouldn't be allowed. But stop pressure from something that, again, all you have to know is that it can't be taken care of with pills, and then it's okay. Yes, thank you for the reminder about the Band-Aids. The Band-Aids, I was going to get to it, but I didn't get to it. But once I said I was going to discuss it, when you put on a Band-Aid, so let's say putting a Band-Aid on a finger, the Band-Aid having nothing to do with Refua, the Band-Aid should not be glued to itself, according to many poskim. It should not be glued to itself because that's a form of sewing on Shabbos. So the best way to do it is to put, say, one end of the Band-Aid over here and then go around, and meaning both ends of the Band-Aid should be stuck to the skin. That's the way a Band-Aid should be put on, not around and stuck to itself, because that will stay there pretty much permanently. So some say that it's a form of sewing. So therefore, when you're putting on Band-Aids, keep both ends connected to the skin. It's usually not a problem. Okay, taking Advil Tylenol to relieve arthritis pain that's not allowed, because that's arthritis pain is not swell. I mean, it could be it's swelling, but that's something that can be healed with medication, in which case you have the Gezer de Rabbanon of healing. We're talking about external inflammations. I don't know if that's the right word, but like a bump or something like that. That's a swelling, right? So so taking the arthritis pain medication is not allowed, but what you should do is take it, like we said, that was the last thing we discussed, is taking it preventative. Take it before the arthritis pain comes on, if it ever ceases to hurt. So then what you do is you take it before it comes on, and then you'll be okay. Or once somebody's really in pain from it, then it's also okay. So closing a dirty diaper so some place can say it's a problem when the diapers change, they say, so when you take the ends and you glue them so that it's easier and neater to throw out. So some place can say you should not do that. Rosh Hashanah says it's not a problem because you don't care. You're just throwing it straight into the garbage anyways. I don't believe that would apply to the Band-Aids, because the Band-Aid, you want it to stay there for a while like that. But a diaper, Rosh Hashanah says it's okay because you don't really care. You're throwing it in the garbage anyways. Right? Okay, if you need to put on two Band-Aids on the tip of your finger, one going on the top, one going around, and try to keep out as much as you can. So again, that sounds like it's more of a major cut. So when you put it over the top, so one part is going to be stuck to here, one part is going to be stuck there. Then what you can do, I mean, he's saying when you put it around, I mean, if you could try and tape it to the side where there's no Band-Aid there, then that would be better. If the ends of it go on, and it's fine. It's a chumrah. I'm not saying you have to do that. So if it's necessary to prevent infection, then again, since it's a chumrah, don't make yourself crazy. Okay, but we'll discuss cuts and stitches and I don't know. Next week. I would hope next week, Be'ez Hashem, we'll be able to discuss that. Not that anybody should ever need it. Okay. a good Tvach, everybody, and a good Yor, and everybody should be safe and not need any of these to know any of these halachas. All right. Good night.